BLM spends a lot of money on accidents. But the question is, why do we keep having accidents? Well, accidents occur when our prevention methods fail, and in most cases they are due to human error. Very rarely are accidents due to equipment failure. Often there is a lack of training or knowledge that is identified as a root cause of accidents. Sometimes that root cause is a lack of policy or enforcement of existing policies. Unfortunately, when an accident occurs, your supervisor and you have the responsibility to ensure that all the proper reports are filled out. Your supervisor also has the responsibility to investigate accidents. This may involve using someone in your office who is trained in accident investigations. Now, many of you view this as just a paperwork exercise, but accidents are reported for several reasons, and not all of them are apparent. One of the primary reasons why we need to know the details of an accident is to prevent it from happening again. Our goal is always to reduce accidents, since they impact the way we do business and cost us millions of dollars. The time it takes to do these reports is one of the hidden costs that are mentioned earlier. There are also the human costs, such as pain and suffering. Accident statistics are used to target specific areas that need improvement. This allows us to identify negative trends. This may impact the programming of funds for such things as training or equipment upgrades. I know many of you dread the paperwork and wonder, how could it possibly benefit me? Well, an example of trends that benefited a lot of people we can remember was the Firestone tire recall. Once a nationwide trend was identified, the tires were recalled and lives and property were saved. So remember that example the next time you have an accident that you don't think needs to be reported. Eventually, all those accidents can add up. So are there any times when we wouldn't report an accident? We don't report contractor accidents because they are already covered under their own company program. However, we treat volunteers like our own employees, and we do report their accidents. What is an employee to do when you have been involved in an accident? It is a situation that nobody wants to be in. So how many times has that happened to you? You are out in the field and you just hit a rancher's calf while coming back to the office. You get out of the vehicle and find that you killed the calf and caused some damage to the government vehicle. You are a little upset and call your supervisor to explain the vehicle accident. Thankfully, your boss is at his desk and you explain what happened. First off, your supervisor asks if you are okay or if anyone else was hurt or otherwise involved. You respond saying you are okay and no one else was involved, but you are upset and your supervisor can tell you are very upset. Your supervisor tries to calm you down and asks you if you need help or a ride back to the office. You say that the truck is drivable, but ask the supervisor what you should do now. Your supervisor reminds you of the accident report form packet that's located in the glove box of the truck, which you easily find. Your supervisor explains to you that he'd like you to write up a statement about what exactly happened, including obtaining names and contact information about any witnesses, description of any property damage, and the location of the accident. In this case, since someone's private property was involved, your supervisor advises you that he will contact local law enforcement to file an accident report, help locate the calf owner, and clear the scene. Your supervisor goes on to ask you to fill out as much of the accident report forms as possible. Then, come see him first thing in the morning to fill out the rest of the report forms. You tell the supervisor you will work on the report forms and your statement and get back to the office as soon as you can. So to review, in situations like this one, the first thing you always want to let your supervisor know is if anyone is injured. Next, your supervisor will determine the seriousness of the accident and advise you of the proper procedure that should be followed. Your supervisor will most likely ask you to contact them personally, whether at work or at home, when you return to the office so that they know you are safe. Your supervisor will gather as much information as possible. They will need to know about road conditions, lighting conditions, and weather, or anything that might be related to the cause of the accident. If your office has a trained accident investigator on staff, they may be sent out or the local police will be sent to do some investigating. And finally, make sure you and your supervisor always follow up together and work on the accident report. So let's go back to the calf accident. The next day you go in to see your supervisor to talk about the accident. You bring along your accident packet partially filled out. You sit down with your supervisor to go over what happened, including what you visited about and what could be done in the future to prevent this from happening again. At this point, your supervisor will outline any corrective measures with you and together fill out the rest of the forms. These forms include the SF91 Motor Vehicle Report form and any SF94 witness statements. Once those are complete, together you log into the SMIS database to enter the accident information. Once the SMIS report has been entered, your supervisor has completed documenting the accident. And at the end of the day, you and your supervisor can say that you have, as well as possible, dealt with one of the unfortunate events that can happen on the job. Remember that you need to take the time to meet with your supervisor to go over all of the accident forms. During this meeting, your supervisor will determine what corrective action should be taken to prevent this type of accident from happening again. Additionally, your supervisor should determine if you have any additional training needs. An example of one of these needs would be defensive driving. In accidents, not only does an SMIS report have to be filed, but a CA1 notice of traumatic injury needs to be completed only if there is an injury, or a CA2 claim for occupational illness if there is an occupational illness. Remember, anytime a CA1 or CA2 is filled out, a SMIS report needs to be filed too. The SMIS database also contains a CA1, so you can file it electronically. No matter where an employee is geographically located when they are injured, it is still your supervisor's responsibility to submit those accident reports. And for those of you not familiar with the SMS reporting system, it can be found at www.smis.doi.gov. Or you can contact your state or district safety manager for assistance with SMIS.